I call this phenomenon the greatest market failure the world has ever seen, because the impacts are so big, the impacts are on everybody, and we are all active in creating that problem through our emissions. And that is a huge inefficiency. And if there's a huge inefficiency, we ought to be able to do a lot better by overcoming that inefficiency. We can make future generations much better off. We could actually leave less, as it were, monetary resource transfers because we're not penalizing them so hard through the climate. That's the kind of inefficiency that this would overcome. The second reason, so there's a deep inefficiency in all this around the market failure. The second is that innovation and learning are going to be at the heart of the whole story. And we're already seeing that by placing a premium on new inventions around solar or reducing the cost of solar, we saw absolutely dramatic change. We've seen that fuel consumption in cars, with some direct policy and regulation, you've seen how fast things can change. So what we're talking about is launching ourselves down a different path where learning and discovery at the Schumpeterian and other kinds are going to be enormously important. So that's again a reason that we can do so much better. And let me give you just one example in policy. We know that fuel subsidies are deeply damaging to all this. We also know, and there's a nice paper from Cody and others at the IMF, that if you look at the distributional impact of fuel subsidies, the top decile gets about 6 times as much, absolutely, as the bottom decile. So by getting rid of those fuel subsidies, there'll be some rise in price, of course, for the poorest people, but you could gain enormously to compensate there. And the absence of a carbon price is very close to a fuel subsidy. A $25 a tonne CO2, which is far too low in my view, would double coal prices. Coal prices at $50 a tonne or so are ludicrously low. Coal's not cheap. Coal's very expensive indeed if you add in anything like a carbon price, and you add in, as you should, the deeply damaging and killing consequences of air pollution. So we know from the studies on fuel subsidies how much better we could do from the point of view of income distribution by getting rid of the fuel subsidies and compensating with the revenue that we retain, compensating poorer people. So you've got it's just the same with carbon prices. By not putting on a carbon price, you're subsidizing a very destructive activity. You're letting people throw damaging pollution, both of the particulate kind and of the carbon dioxide kind, into the air for nothing. That's subsidy, giving something very damaging for free.